Good morning, members of the Committee of Petitions and Support staff. Welcome to the committee meeting number 3 of today, Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. We have established a quorum of 6 members. Please let us stand for a moment of silence. I have not received any notice of absence or any notice of lateness. Are there any notifications this morning? I see no need. The agenda point for this committee meeting is discussion with the concerned ministers related to the petition regarding objections to the recent developments and future developments on Mullet Bay Beach IS 758, 2021-2022, dated April 7, 2022. We go over to the agenda point. On April 7, 2022, Parliament received a petition regarding objections to recent developments and future developments on Mullet Bay Beach from Ms. Nina Bainsdorp, with 2,760 signatures from residents of St. Martin. They would like to object to the recent developments and future developments on Mullet Bay Beach. With the request was attached the following for your review: the letters submitted to Vromi and Teyat, the petition objecting the recent and future developments, and the cover letter, the petition of signatures, the petition comments by those who signed. On Tuesday, June 14, 2022, at 2 p.m. in a closed-door meeting, the Committee of Petitions met to determine if the request was deemed a petition in accordance with the guidelines of the Petitions Committee. The conclusion in the meeting of Tuesday, June 14, 2022, was yes, the petition was deemed a petition following the formal requirements of Article 10, which are: for a petition to qualify for investigations by the committee, the application must include name, address, and signature of the petitioner and her or his representatives, an elucidation of the reasons which have led to the filing of the petition, and the interest which a petitioner has in an investigation by the committee, and a description of the request. A petition can also be submitted electronically and complies with all of the requirements which are applicable for a written petition as laid down in the first paragraph. On June 16, 2022, the petitioner was informed by letter CP 002, 2021-2022, that the request is deemed a petition. Content of letters sent to the petitioner. On April 7, 2022, Parliament received your petition containing an objection to the recent developments and future developments on Mullet Bay Beach, IS 758, 2021-2022, dated April 7, 2022. The petition was referred to the Committee of Petitions of Parliament, and a committee meeting was held on June 15, 2022. As you may be aware, Article 24 of the Constitution stipulates that everyone is entitled to submit written petitions to competent authorities. Paragraph 3 of said article further states that petitions sent to Parliament shall be answered by Parliament within the time limit as may be imposed in terms of the Rules of Order of Parliament. Article 68 of the Constitution reiterates that Parliament shall investigate petitions sent to the institution. Article 21 of the Rules of Order of Parliament further stipulates a Committee of Petitions of Parliament. The committee is obliged to respond to the petitioner in writing within 12 weeks after receipt of the petition. Based on Article 3 and 10 of the regulation of the Committee of Petitions, the committee concluded that your request meets the requirement of a petition and therefore will send your petition to the relevant ministers for their response. Based on Article 9 of the regulation of the Committee of Petitions, a copy may be sent to the ministers most suitable to handle the petition to provide information thereon. The ministers has a period of 6 weeks in which they shall respond to the committee. On June 20, 2022, letters were sent to the ministers of Romi and the Minister of Teyat, CP 002-2021-2022. The Committee of Petitions sent to the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, and the Minister of Teyat a copy of the petitions per Article 9 of the committee's guidelines, which states that the minister has a period of 6 weeks in which they will answer the committee. It is in light of the above, the committee would like to request that the committee be provided with the position of the Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, and the Minister of Teyat about this petition within 6 weeks. On August 10, 2022, Ms. Nina Bengsdorp sent an email requesting an update from Committee IS 1176, 2021-2022 from the Committee of Petitions. On September 1, 2022, the Committee of Petitions responded to the requester stating that on June 23, 2022, Parliament forwarded the request to the Honorable Ministers of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunications, Mr. Lawrence, dated June 23, 2022, and the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure regarding the petition containing an objection to the recent developments and future developments on Mullet Bay Beach. Based on Article 9, the regulation of the Committee of Petitions, a copy must be sent to the minister most suitable to handle the petition to provide information thereon. The minister had 6 weeks in which they should have reacted. Today is September 1st, 2022, and unfortunately, the Committee of Petition has yet to receive a communication from the ministers regarding the petition IS 758, 2021-2022, dated April 7, 2022. On September 22nd, the Committee of Petitions received a response from the Minister of Romi, seeing that the Committee of the Petitions did not receive any feedback from the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunications. The committee has decided to invite the ministers to come and give his feedback to the committee. Hence the meeting today. I would now like to give the floor to the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, and Telecommunications, Honorable Minister Lambriggs. Minister, you have the floor.
Good morning, honorable members of Parliament. Good morning to the chair. Good morning to the Hafir. Good morning to the support staff. Good morning also to the person in the tribune. Thank you for inviting me today. As everyone knows, I'm newly in office, so I'm here mostly to gather really what the questions are and the concerns are before I can give any responses. So that is my position at the moment. So I'm here to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I would like to give the floor to the committee. Is there anyone here today in the committee that wishes to have the floor? I see MP Gums wishes to have the floor. MP Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and good morning to you, the Hafir, the two ministers with us here today, their support staff, my colleagues, and those joining us in the Tribune and online. Madam Chair, I'm not actually a member of this committee, but considering the importance of Mullet Bay Beach to all of us, if we were to follow the discussions in this Parliament, I found it pertinent to be here with some questions that I have, having followed the development of the petition on Facebook as well when this development in question was coming about. I just have a few questions right now. And the Minister of Teyat has actually answered one of them because I was going to ask him if he could provide some clarity as to whether or not a handover was performed between himself and his predecessor, the interim minister, or by ministry staff to allow him the opportunity to have something to say to us today. So thank you for answering that in advance, Minister. I do have a few other questions, though, that you can take back to the ministry. When you return, we'll get the answers. If memory serves me correctly, through you, Madam Chair, to the Minister of TEAT, there was an amendment done in 2012 to the beach and vending policy that was then signed off or ratified, so to speak, by the then Minister of TEAT, Ted Richardson, in 2014. To your knowledge, Minister, was there public consultation done prior to the decision on the amendment being made? And what are your thoughts on conducting public consultation prior to amending or establishing policies related to public domain like the beaches? For both ministers, through you, Madam Chair, a concrete way of protecting Mullet Bay Beach from further development and encroachment on public space would be to amend policies related to it once more to enact a sort of moratorium where only the current 3 establishments related to it are allowed to remain, and where stricter regulations for beach chair placement, music volume, and lights at night are established. This, of course, is to protect the wildlife, especially the turtles that build and hatch their nests on the beach. So could both ministers share if they've begun discussions regarding this possible solution between their respective ministries, as well considering that the Minister of Rami was here not too long ago with his spatial development strategy? And how does the protection then of Mullet Bay Beach and our other public beaches fit into that strategy? And for the Minister of Rami, through you, Madam Chair, how much do the establishments on Mullet Bay pay in rent to the government of St. Martin for the use of the space on a public beach to construct and operate their establishments? When last were these fees revisited? And I ask this to see what is the offset between the loss of public space on the beach versus the gain for the country financially? Are the establishments on the beach currently in compliance with the terms of their rental agreements? I ask because, as I understand it, establishments are allotted a certain amount of square meterage within which they have to operate, as well as conditions regarding the size, materials, and the breakdown capability of the structure. However, if I look at the bill out of especially 2 of the 3 establishments currently on Mullet Bay Beach, my estimation, not being an engineer, is that they are kind of expanding outside of their allotted square meterage. So if you could share, Minister, how much square meters are they allowed to operate within? And that is it for me right now, Madam Chair. Wait, sorry, one question. How are the regulations for the decibels allowed in terms of volume and music determined and enforced? You know, I know one of the establishments has very bright lights on at night. If Nature Foundation has taught us anything, it is that when turtles hatch, the baby turtles need to find their way to the ocean, and lights can confuse them, disorient them, and then in that way you are damaging our wildlife on the beach. So if they could just share some insight into that. And that's it for me, Madam Chair, for now. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Gums. I now give the floor to MP Westcott Williams. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Lady. A good morning to you. A good morning to our support staff. A good morning to my colleagues. A good morning to the ministers and their support staff. A good morning to those in the Tribune. A good morning to all tuned in to this meeting. Madam Chair, Lady, I'm not confused. I'm perturbed by the way that this meeting has been introduced and the conclusions. With the Minister of TEAT's response, is it not so that this objection and letter went to the Ministry of TEAT? Is that not a fact from all that you read up in the introduction? Because I kind of lost the thread in the introduction to get a keen feel of where we are on this matter, right now. So my question is, has not the petition been sent to the Ministry of TEAT? Is the Ministry of TEAT not aware of the response that was given to this petition? To the chair lady of this committee, is it also recorded that we as Parliament have received responses from the minister to that petition? On the basis of these responses, further questions were asked to the minister. So I want to go back to the Ministry of TEAT. Were you made aware of the petition by your office, by your predecessor, or by whosoever? The Minister of TEAT, at the start of his tenure, announced a 100-day plan and highlighted some areas that pertain to this plan. Can the Minister of TIAT, albeit his short time in office, share the plans and the priorities as envisioned in the 100 days by the Ministry of TIAT? Madam Chair Lady, I received a response from the Ministry of VROMI on the IS 034 of, I believe it was 22-23. And the Minister of VROMI referred to the beach policy of VROMI. On the government site, in addition to other oftentimes antiquated policies that are on the government site, my question is the one that is mentioned on the TIAT. Is there any collaboration, alignment with these two policies? How do both ministries view the stipulations regarding the requirements to build on the beach as stated in the Civil Code of St. Martin? How do the ministries view that particular requirement? I would like it to be quoted and indicated how it is being lived up to. In the responses that I received under the IS 034, the Minister of VROMI indicated that according to current practices, there was no need to consult with the Nature Foundation on the large project that at the time was going up, now is on the beach of Mullet Bay. However, the minister continued in his responses to me, the Nature Foundation was consulted on the particular project on which the objection, or to which the objection applies. And they had given the ministry some indications as to how it should be done. So my question is, in connection with the not the latest, it's actually the one, in connection with the management agreement signed between the government of St. Martin and Nature Foundation, is it now a requirement that Nature Foundation is consulted? So again, on the basis of the agreement signed with Nature Foundation, is it not a requirement that the advice from Nature Foundation be obtained when it has to do with buildings and the like? Again, Madam Chair Lady, there is a response here at Parliament to the objection that was filed. And my question is, are we going to look concretely at those responses? I recall that even the agreements with the persons occupying parts of the Mullet Bay Beach, even those agreements were provided. And at the time, I asked whether it is customary that in providing agreements such as those, that the agreements provided by government are redacted. That was my question, because that's the way they have been presented to Parliament. So, Madam Chair Lady, I think we're missing out some parts here where this particular matter is concerned, and one of them being the answers that we do have on the table of Parliament in response to the petition/objection that was filed. And my last question in this context, the petitioners, the objectors rather, because there has also been objections filed with government, and have these been directly responded to? So have the persons who objected, have they been responded to and not just referred to the publication of buildings and buildings to be erected by the ministry? I thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I now give the floor to MP Solange Duncan. MP Duncan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to you. Good morning to the ministers and their support staff. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to those sitting in the tribune and to everyone tuned in. Madam Chair, like I'm sure you and many of us in here, I grew up on Mullet Bay Beach. In the 90s, you know, you would spend the whole weekend there, shark hole, whale hole, and it holds a special place in all of our hearts. The minister said he's here for information, and this meeting and the trajectory that led to this meeting is about overdevelopment, it is about environmental protection, it is about the future of a beach that all of us, and all of the beaches actually on St. Martin, that all of us hold quite dear to us. I don't go to Mullet Bay anymore because to me it's too busy, so I go to other beaches, honestly. And that is actually the issue that we are here discussing in a nutshell. Madam Chair, I would like to know, through you, the government's clear philosophy on the protection of beaches as it concerns development. Because what we see sometimes is that economic development has taken... We put economic development over environmental protection, in my opinion, in this country. And I would like to know through you whether there is any joint working groups or even interministerial discussions as it concerns the balance of or between economic development and environmental protection. I think MP Westcott alluded to that idea. Are the policies and the ideas and the philosophies of these two very different ministries aligned? Because again, when it comes to Mullet Bay, MP Gums mentioned 3 establishments, but I believe that permits have been issued for 5 establishments. I would like to know if this is the case. And if so, is it the intention of government to issue more permits? So the philosophy, what is the philosophy of developing Mullet Bay and any other beach for that matter? That we have to understand, and I hope that we can get a clear response. Because for people like me, I don't believe that Mullet Bay should be developed any more than it already is. And what we see is that private developers get offended, but it's private development. It's not even public development in which we can probably ensure hopefully sustainable development or conservation. So getting an understanding of what is happening now and what the future ideas are for Mullet Bay is very important, Madam Chair, for the people of St. Martin. Madam Chair, in this country, we're learning more that we have to go beyond just informing the public about what we do. So government needs to now partner and more than just consult. Say, listen, we're going to partner on this decision together. And I would like to know if the government would see it possible to implement a public survey on the development of all beaches, so that the people could have a say on whether or not they believe that beaches should be further developed. Because if I look at the beaches in the south, except for maybe Little Bay, maybe a little bit of Simpson Bay, all of our beaches are developed. And these activities are privately owned activities that have an impact on the environment. And again, when we think long term, there might not be any natural beach left for our people. And maybe some of us think that that's okay, but I know that there are a lot of us that don't think that that is okay. And again, it is about our environment and the preservation of our natural heritage. I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, if any impact assessments can be done to understand, again, how this development will not only affect Mullet Bay, but the other beaches and continue development if we continue in this path. Is it the intention of the Ministry of Romy to amend the beach policy? I know that there was the plan or the strategy that was just, that came out. So that I have to go over again to see if there were any indications there, but I'd like to know if there is an intention now to amend the beach policy. And I think that is it for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Duncan. I now give the floor to MP Pontiflet. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to the Chair, my colleagues, Parliament, our Khifir, our honorable ministers of Romi and Tiat, and of course their support staff, persons sitting in the tribune, and those who are viewing or listening if it's being transmitted by radio. I just have two questions, Madam Chair. I believe there exists what you call a St. Martin beach and vending policy, and therein is stipulated as to how establishments are to function on the beaches. My question to you, Madam Chair, is how often are controls done at the beaches on St. Martin, not only Mullet Bay, but how often are controls done on the beaches to ensure that these persons are operating and functioning in accordance with what has been stipulated in their permits? Because as I've heard from speakers before me, there are a lot of activities taking place, but of course, these businesses must be able to operate, but it has to be contingent upon what is stipulated in the permits that have been given to them. And if these controls have been done, who make the reports? Have reports been made? To whom are they submitted? And if there were any fines that were levied on these who have not complied with the stipulated, what is stipulated in their permits? Again, those are just my two questions, Madam Chair. I await the answers from the minister or ministers.
Thank you, MP Pontiflet. I now give the floor to MP Bijlani. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Good morning to you. Good morning to Grafir. Good morning to the honorable ministers and support staff and people in Tribune, my colleagues in Parliament, and good morning to St. Martin. I will just go with my questions. I don't know pertaining to which ministry it will fall, but to both the ministers, through you, Chair Lady. What steps have been taken by the government to address the concerns raised by the community members about the project? How was the decision to approve the development made, and what criteria were considered in the decision-making process? What is the government's plan to ensure that the Mullet Bay development does not harm the environment or the local community? What measures are in place to ensure that the developers are held accountable for any negative impacts of the Mullet Bay development? How will the government balance the economic benefits of the Mullet Bay development with the concerns raised by the local residents and environmental groups? What role does the government see for the public participation in the decision-making process for the Mullet Bay development, and how will public input be taken into account? How will the government ensure that the Mullet Bay development project aligns with the country's long-term sustainable development goals? What lessons has the government learned from previous development projects in St. Martin, and how will these lessons be applied to Mullet Bay development? How will the government work to rebuild trust with the local residents who feel that their voices are not being heard in the decision-making process for the Mullet Bay development? Thank you, Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Bijlani. I now give the floor to MP Rian Peterson. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A good morning to yourself. A good morning to the honorable ministers and the support staff. Good morning to my fellow colleagues, to the people in the Tribune, and to everybody else tuned in throughout the various media outlets. Madam Chair, the Mullet Bay situation with all of the restaurants, it dates back to before Irma, and this goes back to when we had the meeting about the Mullet Bay inquiry, where I explained that after Irma, the company Sun Resorts decided to bulldoze an existing structure that was there at Mullet Bay. And since then, the Ministry of Romi then took charge to take back the ownership of the beach part itself. In those findings, I remember that Domain asked the Ministry of Teat to give them a list of all licenses pertaining to Mullet Bay at that time. I believe this was around 2018 or 2019, and back then the Ministry of Teat did provide the Ministry of Romy with every single license that was issued pertaining to Mullet Bay. And at that time, I believe there were 3, MP Duncan, to answer that question that you asked the minister. There were 3 licenses, and of which 2 of them pertain to the same area. So the first restaurant on the beach, when you walk up, that restaurant is actually operating under 2 licenses. One is for the restaurant part, and I think another one was for the beach part. Next to that, you have another restaurant in the middle. I believe we call that Rosie's. And then there was one other establishment to get a license, and that was Mahula's. And that was all the way down at the beach. We, as Domain then, we did the act of ownership according to the advice from the Legal Affairs then, and we gave out the rental agreement, the temporary agreement for all the licenses, and we put in these licenses that they had a certain amount of area that they were allowed to use. All of the conditions were the same, and I believe at that point there were a total of 3. So my question in light of that to both ministers is that since 2019 or 18, when that case was done, has there been more licenses issued for Mullet Bay in general? So whether it's to operate or whether it's for chairs or whatever, because the whole intention back in 2018 and 19 was that the licenses that were given out were supposed to be the last ones, because to avoid actually this confusion. So that would be my first question. Second question is, I remember in that same rental agreement that was issued to the license holders, a specific area was mentioned as to in which they can operate. Also in that rental agreement, they had more conditions as to that the people, if they would want to build anything, that they would have to go to the permits department, etc. So I just want to know if all of that was done, and if so, can the paperwork be provided, maybe in a confidential manner, so that the members of Parliament can have their own vision of it. That'll be all from me for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Peterson. I now give the floor to MP De Wever. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good morning to you, to my colleagues, to both ministers here, persons in the Tribune, viewing and listening public, and their support staff as well. Sorry, I missed that. Madam Chair Lady, I just wanted to get a recap, just to understand, through you to the ministers, if they understand why the objection was done in the first place. The objection was done because of the fact that this was literally the largest patch of sand, sandy beach remaining on the island, where you actually have turtle nesting activity happening that was being encroached on. That is the #1 question here. Do you understand why there is an objection? That objection comes in the protection of our community. And while we're here, I am actually super happy that we have the Minister of Romy and the Minister of Tayat here together, because then it actually aligns the plans that the Minister of Romy had in his long-term plan of sustainable development, which is where we should actually be looking at. How are we going to protect our environment? How are we going to do that in a responsible manner? And that's what was missing when you add in his plan, his urban planning, spatial development plan, doing that in a responsible manner, in a way that we can continue making money in our main area, which is tourism sector. And I get that. That is the reality of the place, of how we live on an island. We make our money through tourism. But it comes at a responsibility and cost, and it comes at a cost to our environment. And this is all this objection was blasting out there for all of us to hear, that, hey, we know that we need to survive and make money and make our people comfortable and pay their bills and do their normal civic duties, but we have to do it in a sustainable and responsible manner. Over the past year, you have had persons come in here from the Nature Foundation telling us that our national bird is at risk. Now, you have an objection that is a year ago sent to Parliament saying, what is the plans for this government that so claims that they care about our people and our environment? What is the plans of this government to do in the last place that we have? What are your plans to save it? So I understand that the minister is new, and I'm not gonna knock him for that. But maybe the minister needs to do a little bit more digging in the things that matter to this community. And what matters is that we have sustainable development and sustainable survival of our people. And when you are looking at Mullet Bay, The people right here you should be asking are sitting down right here in the Tribune. That's here. Information gathering means when they have 2 weeks ago at Bel Air, I believe it. I don't know if any other members of Parliament went there. At Bel Air, there was a gathering of how, sustainable development, environmentalism. There was something on Tuesday about, making St. Martin plastic free, even though in Parliament we still use plastic bottles. I don't. But the point is, have a conversation with people that is a meaningful one. And when you come and you present plans and you say, I care about the future of this country, you do it in a way that really, really matters by having a conversation with the people that do all the work. So with that being said, I'm not saying that they're not doing it. I'm reminding you, this is 1 year late. Like MP Gum said before, I'm not even part of this committee, but you show up when it matters. You show up when it matters. And it's unfortunate that even though when you have the biggest cheerleaders of expropriation of Mullet Bay talking about it, they're not here today. And that's all right. That's all right. The people that show up here, those are the ones you should be listening to. So all I would like to find out today is if the ministers, both of them, can actually sit down with the people that matter and listen to their complaint, listen to their plight. I will end the last way. If we survive on tourism, right, what do you think will happen, ministers? Through you, Madam Chair, when the reason that people come to visit us no longer exists. One of them is that beach down there, okay? That's what I want you to take home today. What are you gonna do when you can't make any more money on the thing that you are selling, which is sun, sand, and sea? Because we've actually destroyed them all and paved over them all. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP De Weaver. I now give the floor to MP Pontiflet. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just one thing I wanted to add. While we're on the issue of Mullet Bay beaches and so on, let us take all the beaches into concern, because the fact is, I'll be honest, I haven't read the petition and so on, so I don't know who signed it. It's 2,000 persons signed it. The issue is, I want to also focus, since we're talking about beaches and so on the issue of Little Bay, where in order for us to go to the beach, we have to ask permission from a security guard to go to our beach. So my question is, Madam Chair, because this is many years now, what can we do as Parliament, as government, that when we are saying we are going to the beach, that we should be allowed to either drive in if you can't walk the distance, or walk in? But we have to go through private land, quote unquote, and I don't like that word private land when it comes to the beaches, because you should know for a fact that the beaches are public. All you should do is make a separate road so we could just drive to the beach instead of have to go through Little Bay. Now I'm going to hear yes, but you have to have control because you have guests staying there, you need security in case you rob the place, all that stuff I'm going to hear. But what I want us to focus on also, once we're talking about beaches and so on, is how do we have free access to our beaches without having to go through any kind of controls, such as that, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Pontiflet. MP Westcott-Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, in response to questions that I've posed on this whole Mullet Bay / beach policy issue, not only for Mullet Bay, beaches in general, my request for a committee meeting to talk about the beach policy and moratoriums is dated from March of last year. The request was that 2 committees come to Parliament, at least 2 ministers come to a committee of Parliament, the Minister of TIAT and the Minister of Romi. So I just want especially the new Minister of TIAT to be aware of that. It is also in that request that I mentioned what I earlier mentioned again, and that is with respect to the regulations in the Civil Code 526 regarding the ownership of beach and activities on the beach, rather construction on the beach. And again, I want to ask both ministers how they view the implementation, execution, if you wish, of that particular part of the Civil Code. Madam Chair Lady, in responses going back to December the 1st, 2021 by the Ministry of Romy on these issues again. In response to my question, how many permits have been granted for the Mullet Bay Beach and what type of permits? At the time it was answered, a total of 4 rental agreements have been issued at Mullet Bay Beach, of which 2 have been granted building permits. The rental agreements consist of 2 beach bars, 1 beach bar, water sports activities, and 1 beach chair rental. I see some of my colleagues looking, and so I can just, for information's sake, indicate that that is IS 334 of the 2nd of December, 2021. I continue, Madam Chair Lady. I saw the 2 ministers before us today. I saw them taking a walk on the in Phillipsburg, and I hope that they also went on the beach side of Phillipsburg. And if that was the case, I would like to know, especially from our Minister of TIAT, how do you view the state of the beach of Phillipsburg, generally speaking, its attraction or lack thereof? What is your intention with respect to some of the old, I don't want to call them shacks, but the partial huts, really, that are the partial huts that are left on the beach? So what were your findings with respect to, if your walk through Phillipsburg included the beach, what were your findings with respect to the state, for the lack of another word, of the beach of Phillipsburg? Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I look to the floor of Parliament. Are there any other members who wish to have the floor? I see no need. MP Westcott Williams.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, I get a feeling that you might be having to round up, and if that is the case, and you miss me, we have, some of us in here have another meeting at 10 o'clock. I just want to inform, especially the general public, that if I ever am to walk out of a meeting, I will make it known and I will say why I'm walking out. So I just wanted to make it clear, because in a previous meeting regarding the issue of Mullet Bay, that had become an issue. So we're making it very clear. We have a meeting at 10 o'clock, and those of us who do are asked to be excused, and I hope the ministers understand that, and I look forward to your answers, ministers, now or in the not too distant future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams, for your information and informing us of your departure. I would like to say, since we have no other members of Parliament wishing to speak, that the agenda point today was with regards to the petition which was delivered by Ms. Beinsdorp. And throughout the introduction, it was important to give the history of what transpired so everyone listening and those here in the Tribune could understand the trajectory of this particular meeting. We are here today, or we came here today, to actually get and receive information from the Minister of TIAT and the Minister of Romy. And it was made clear to us that the Minister of TIAT was not in receipt of the documents pertaining to this meeting prior. I guess his predecessor did not pass on that information to the minister. I would like to adjourn for 2 minutes to caucus with the minister to see how we would like to proceed with this meeting. I adjourn for 2 minutes. I hereby reconvene this meeting, this gathering, as some members had to leave to attend a prior engagement. We no longer have quorum to continue this meeting, and therefore it is opened as a gathering. I would like to inform the viewing and listening public, those in the Tribune, that the minister has agreed to respond and will provide us with his answers in writing. And as soon as time permits, we will reconvene this meeting. Thank you all for your deliberations and questions this morning, and we will continue this meeting in the near future. Meeting adjourned.